Soccer on the Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
لا تنسون تتابعونا على Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
I like to watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
Me gusta mirar fútbol en Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
I love watching soccer on the Michigan Soccer Network.
Back to Vitriol. He'll take a shot, and he'll bear it! And then he'll fire it from Billows, and it'll go in! Now Worrell has a good cutback from him. He'll fire one, and that's going to go in! And both goals so far. He'll fire one, and that's a wonderful save, Trinity. That's missed. Oh, it's Stone! And he'll fire one now from distance, and that is in! What a strike by Ben Maher!
Guys, welcome back. This is Gronthik Chatterjee here on Nationals Monthly on MSN. Want to get this show going just by recapping a little bit of what we did in the last one, and then kind of introducing what we're going to do here today going forward. So last time, I think we tried to give an overview about the club, about Nationals, what we're all about. There's so much to cover, so it ended up covering a lot. But as a quick recap, we went through the Nationals formation story, right? We went through kind of how the club came together, the ethos of the club, from the badge itself and the 5 stars, from player, family, team, club, community, how we spread from our original locations and where we've gone to all these different geographies now kind of around Southeast Michigan, from Lansing to Saginaw to Genesee County and Grand Blanc, and then back down here in Oakland and Macomb, our branches in Lapeer, out in Port Huron, that area, out in that section of the world. So we kind of went through that spread and how many different communities have Nationals programs and have players and where we're drawing from. We also went through the player pathway. So from our juniors nationals programs all around, in each one of our locations, to other programming, however you get your start in soccer, and then entering, once you enter into the club, the initial youth stages of the game where you're playing in local leagues like MYSL or Whistle or MMYSL, MSDSL, and how that from an under 8, under 9, under 10 can kind of lead into the statewide Directors Academy and all those levels through USYS and MSYSA that they have, from the Michigan State Premier League to NLC, which is National League Conferences, and the USYS path all the way to National League. And then we also discussed, the next higher level leagues that are out there, from ECNL and the Girls Academy, MLS Next, and then the pathway from there to college, to the semi-professional game, and then eventually to the professional game, and how all of these steps in this pathway connect to one another, and how you have access. And I'm sorry, I think I failed to mention our national team and our youth national team systems as well, and how within Nationals, no matter what your aspirations and talent level are, that you have the ability to have access to all of these things within one club, and I think that's a pretty cool and unique experience that you can afford your kid if you're a part of our club. So that's kind of just a brief recap of Nationals and where we came from and what we were doing. That was the whole last show, and that was me doing quite a bit of talking and just kind of setting the groundwork for the show and the club. But today I wanted to do something a little bit different, a little bit more unique. I wanted to try to maybe discuss and talk about and answer in some way things that I think would be pertinent questions for all of you out there as parents, as players. What might be things that you would want to know, and to try to help engage that conversation, I've brought in John Turner and Steve Besk today from MSN, our host network. Both of them have had a variety of different experiences in the game, Steve's played all the way through college soccer. John has a whole different set of experiences and different perspectives. Both of them have been around the game from a refereeing perspective, a playing perspective, a parent perspective, a brother perspective. All these different things. And, and they've heard, right? They just hear through the grapevine all of the different concerns and questions that are kind of out there about club soccer, because these guys deal with soccer on every level, right? From the semi-pro game to the college game to the full pro game to the youth game to high school games. So they kind of hear the whole gamut, I would say, of player, parent, referee, all the different concerns. They've kind of heard it through all of their discussions and interviews over time and their personal reflections. So I brought these two fine gentlemen in to kind of facilitate the conversation, ask some of the questions, and then kind of get into a discussion about all these different topics of hopefully things that would be important for you, whether you're the player or the parent, to know and understand, or whether you're even in the game of soccer or thinking about getting involved in the game of soccer, how this can all apply to you and what might be a reasonable concern from your end and how it might help maybe shed some light on it from my perspective. So with that being said, guys, let's take it away, and we'll get going in just a second with John and Steve.
Are you looking to grow here in 2023? Let the Michigan Soccer Network help you and your restaurant fill more seats. Help you and your law firm get new clients. Help you and your dental practice find more patients. Find more roofing customers for this upcoming summer. And to help you and your medical practice find new patients. To learn more or get started, visit MichiganSoccerNetwork.com.
If that is not what you're trying to do, then keep doing what you're doing, I guess, right? But if the goal is to put out a bunch of good kids into the world who actually give a crap about stuff, maybe you shouldn't be an ass on the sideline.
Well, and that's the thing, is that, what's crazy about this game is that it has taken our family all over the world.
100%.
It's amazing. And I think part of that is because we haven't surrounded ourselves with idiots.
Yeah.
We've been involved with great parents. The vast majority are outstanding. Outstanding people, good boys, good girls. And when you surround yourself with those kinds of people in that environment, this game might take you places.
Yeah.
And
Granite City Food and Brewery has 2 Michigan locations in Troy and Northville. Serves made-from-scratch food, brews in-house beer, and even has brunch every Sunday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. To learn more about their daily specials or to book a private party, visit gcfb.com. Make sure you head over to Granite City in Northville at the corner of 7 Mile and Haggerty, or the Troy location at 16 Mile and I-75.
Now Worrell has a good cutback from him. He'll fire one, and that's going to go in!
In action. Go. And action. Hi, we're the Tilley Sisters. And check out, we're the Tilley Sisters. Check out our journey on the Michigan Soccer Network. You weren't looking Hi, we're the Tilley Sisters. And you can check out our journey on the Michigan Soccer Network. Do it around all right. I'll just go like this. All right. Oh, wait, what are we saying?
Hey guys, welcome back. This is Gronthik Chatterjee with Nationals Monthly here on MSN, joined by John Turner and Steve Besk. looking forward to continuing our conversation, guys.
Yeah, we're looking forward to being on this show with you the first time. It's exciting. Your last month's show, really, really good.
Well, I hope so. I hope it was informative for a lot of people, just to kind of get a background on the club and a background on kind of how we formed and what our purpose is and what we're all about here at the club.
Yeah, no question. So the point of this, Gronthik, was when we talked about this kind of before all of this, was to find a way to be able to maybe build a little bit on the foundations of what you talked about in the first episode, and maybe ask some questions of you that will help maybe dive a little deeper and really give the viewer, the audience, an opportunity to learn more in-depth nationals.
Great. Yeah, looking forward to it. So shoot away, guys.
Well, let's jump right in then. If I'm a prospective parent out there and I've got all these different clubs in my backyard, why would I choose the Nationals over other local clubs that are out there?
Yeah, I think first of all, great question, because I think that's always the initial starting point, right? Is what is the value proposition for any club, right? For at some point in time you find out about soccer, you get your kids involved in it in some sort of little recreational or developmental program, or that program is actually with us, with one of our junior nationals sections of the club, from each one of our communities, and you start out at 3 or 4 or 5 years old within the club, within our junior nationals program. But maybe you're in a rec program, maybe you're just outside, maybe you're a current parent in our club and you have friends and you're kind of wanting to talk to them in some way, as to what you're experiencing or trying to bring them along. So what does make us different, right? What makes us stand out? And I think it goes back to some of the things that I spoke about, Steve, in the last episode, as to what it is that you should look for as a parent. You should always look for, I think, good organization, administrative qualities. I think that's clear for our club in every section of it. You should look for good facilities so that you feel that you're in a safe, good training environment every day with your kid, that they're showing up to reasonable indoor or outdoor fields all the time and for their games. I think you should look for good coaching. I think every club will attest that their coaches are the best coaches around. I think that I would go to, I'd dig a little bit deeper into what does best coach mean by age group, and I can kind of come back to that. Access to games, an appropriate level of games for your kid, and I think especially younger. One of the really, really cool things about our club, that if I was a parent of a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old, that I would really, really look at, that would be different to a local community club, is access to opportunities of training and opportunities of games in a variety of different environments. I think it's something that is extraordinarily special about our club that very, very few other clubs can offer. So I would come back to that. And then again, also access of opportunity in terms of in terms of the pyramid, right? This is a club where you can start, and wherever your ability and proclivity, right? One part is ability level and honing that ability through hours and hours of training. And then if your desire is to go to the top and you have that ability and you put in the work and you keep rising, you can stay within this club and have access to every type of league and game and tournament, international experiences. You have access to everything in this club, whether you start off as a 6-year-old in Macomb or an 8-year-old in Genesee or a 9-year-old in Lansing, or however you come to the club. Whenever you come to the club, if you are rising, the access to incredible high level opportunities is there. And if that is not your desire or is not your ability level, and you stay in a more local community setting, you should still have access to all of the things that I spoke about, where you have a really enjoyable experience in the game in your local community, where you get to put in time and energy and you get to enjoy a lot of the benefits of team sport without necessarily going way overboard, the way that an incredibly high-end player that wants to play in college, that over time decides that they want to go and play in college or go beyond and be a pro, would have to put in, right? So I'll just come back to 2 thoughts. So what is it that makes a good coach for your kid and makes our coaches, in my opinion, some of the best around? I think it comes back again to the 5 stars. And the value system of our club, with the player being first, and then family, and then the team, then the club and the community. When you go back to that as a value stream from the entire club's perspective, where it's actually built into the logo, then I think what you're starting to see is that you have good human beings working with young kids. These should all be good human beings that can be good role models for your kids, in addition to building a real love and enjoyment in the game. That's the key when you're young, right? Is that you fall in love with soccer. Then you can decide that you want to be more and more and more committed to the game over time, where you start to go from 1 or 2 practices a week, when you're 7 or 8 or 9 years old, to starting to get to that 3 to 4 hours of training, 3 or 4, not hours, but 3 or 4 training sessions a week and games on the weekend, where it starts to become, your whole life, right? You identify with this all the way through because you just have fallen in love with it. And so now this isn't like mom and dad forcing you to go to practice. This is you saying, Mom and Dad, please take me to my 3rd practice of the week or my 4th practice of the week, because I love this. I love being with my teammates. I love my coach. I love soccer. I want to be awesome at it. That doesn't come, that has to be an internal thing, right? From the player, really. For a while, it can be sort of parent driven, I guess. And then your kid, through a variety of different experiences, either the coach, the game itself, their teammates, mom and dad also loving it. A variety of things happen where this becomes what you want to do. And then when it's internally driven by the player, then you get to those other moments that happen when you're a little bit older, at 12, 13 and above, right? Where you can really choose to commit to the sport, right? So what does it mean to be a good coach, and why do I feel like our coaches have this? I think they have the technical and the tactical background for sure, but I think a lot of their places will attest to that. But I think we try to really have great human beings involved all the time that have that value system, and that you would feel good as a parent. You would feel good having that coach be the proxy for you for that hour and a half, once or twice or 3 times a week or whatever it is, where they're reinforcing all the values that you would want, put into your child, and what you want to get out of team sport. So I think that's a big part. I think the other big part in terms of just actual soccer development is the fact that when you have a club as large as ours, you have you have multiple teams. So you have, teams above you and below you in your own age group. When you're young, the girls and the boys teams, you can almost interchange at 6, 7, 8, or 9 between the girls and the boys. So you have a variety of teams that are in your own age group. You have a variety of teams age group up or age group down. You have a variety of teams that are in different sections of the club that aren't really that far apart. They're about a 30-minute drive from one another that you can train with, that you can play additional matches with when you're younger, right? There's a lot of extra games that you can get and be a part of and participate in. And on all those things should help development, but they also, they're fun, right? If you start to fall in love with the game, you get to do more. A lot of their clubs that don't have that many teams or don't have that many locations at some point in time, there is going to be a limitation in what they can offer to your child in terms of the amount of soccer that they can take on. So I think these are all things that start to distinguish us at a young age. And then as you get older, obviously the access to opportunity to the high-end tournaments, high-end college placement, high-end even professional national team placement. These are things that, very, very few people can offer that we have access to.
That's a great response. And, I was thinking about what you were talking about, and throughout the whole response, my question would be, or follow-up to this, would be, expectation-wise, right? I don't know, the parent coming in who's got a kid in Nationals Juniors is different than that of a player coming in at the Girls Academy. Right?
Sure.
There's just different expectations, right? So, how do you handle those expectations and address those at the different levels with these parents?
Okay, that's. Do we have another show?
How much time do we got?
How do I answer that even moderately succinctly? I think that the coaches that are in each section of the club, they have built an expertise in these niches, right? And that allows them to address the specific concerns of the variety of, that is very, very true, right? There's this huge variety between a 6-year-old coming in or a 5-year-old coming in at a junior nationals level to a girls or a boys academy player, right? That's coming in and shooting for the very top, right? We're shooting for the stars. Expectations are different. Standards are different as they should be. But I think the fact that we have coaches that are more or less in these niches that have become experts in these zones, age groups, genders, so on and so forth, they can much better specifically address the concerns and the needs and the demands up front. You know, up front, there's parent meetings at the beginning of the year, just trying to educate the families on what the expectations are from the players, the training schedule, the tournament schedule, you know, all the kind of logistical things. And then also for the player themselves, like, okay, hey, when you're 7 or 8, bring a water ball, wear shin guards, bring cleats. If you have running shoes and you don't have your cleats, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Right? Like from the very initial, like, what does it mean to even come to practice? How do you prepare for it? Like, you know, to you know, the top end U18 boys academy player. Well, we're training to win matches. You know, you're training to compete at the very, very top level in the country, to prepare yourself for college. You know, the basic stuff is understood, and it's much more about the mentality to be the very, very best in your particular zone of the field, or the very best player in training, be the best defender in training, be the, you know, whatever the goal is of the day, for you to be able to wrap your mind around that and get there. And I think that the fact that the coaches are specifically oriented to each niche allows them to address all of these concerns up front.
So, sorry, G, I think we're gonna head to break here, but we'll continue this when we get back. As I got a couple more questions for you, but we'll be right back. And
yeah, so, you know, with that in mind, I think we're gonna head on to John Hill's mental performance moment of the month. This month's moment is about injury recovery process. So have a listen to John. He always has really interesting and informative information for you. How about that?
I'm John Hill. Welcome to the Mental Performance Moment of the Month. Each month, I will bring you a short video about how you as an athlete can better prepare for the mental side of the game. Just like you go to training for the technical, tactical, and physical side of the game, mental performance training is the intentional act of training your brain for your sport. This month's mental performance moment is injury recovery process. 30 million children play sports each year. Roughly 10% suffer injuries, some of which are severe. If we really think about it, we want to reframe the injury not as a challenge, but rather as a threat to the goals and dreams of the athlete. We must also consider that each injury experience is unique in terms of the athlete's emotional response and psychological aspects. Stress can have a negative impact on the athlete. Research studies have shown a significant correlation between stress and sporting injuries. Athletes that have a lot of stress, both internal and external, have fewer coping resources available to them, are more likely to present higher stress reactions in a game, thus increasing their risk of injury. The good news is that mental performance interventions have shown huge benefit in injury prevention. Mental performance can reduce the athlete's susceptibility to injury, facilitate the injury recovery process, give the athlete control over the recovery process, and improve the communication process between the athlete and their doctors, which in turn increases their motivation and adherence to rehabilitation protocols. This also allows the athlete to see themselves as an active participant in their process, and this has been shown to have a positive impact on injury rehabilitation. It is critical that they have autonomy in their recovery. Remember, the more stressors there are in an athlete's life, the more an injury is likely to occur. Mental performance techniques can reduce stress, which can lower risk of injuries.
Hey guys, this is Gronthik Chatterjee with Nationals Monthly here on MSN. Welcome back. As we come back to the show, just wanted to throw it back to Steve because I think he had a follow-up question on where we left off last time. So, Steve, take it away, man.
Yeah, G, I know you kind of had mentioned about how you really have a good niche of coaches who understand their niche, and sometimes that's important for coaches to understand that they are a better, girls coach, guys coach, older, younger, because it takes a special person to coach in those different areas. What are those? And what is that? How as a club do you guys view that situation with coaches, and how do you handle, how long a coach is with a team and those kind of areas, and how do you guys as a club address those things?
Yeah, okay, fair enough. One, I think it always has to be practical. It always has to have some level of logic to it, right, in terms of what the decision-making process is. in general, across the club, we try to work in like two-year blocks. If you can do that, I think it's important for all the kids to have different experiences, different voices, different learnings. Sometimes there's new information. Sometimes it's the exact same information, but because it comes from you, Steve, instead of from me, it clicks for that kid. It clicked for 8 kids with me, but it didn't click for player 9 to 13. And then you come and say the exact same thing, and it just clicks for player 9 to 13. And, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter for me how the information gets in, as long as it gets in and children develop and get the information and continue to progress in their careers and their learning. So the voice, who imparts the information over time, is not as important as long as the information gets in. But I do think having a variety of voices allows kids to learn in different ways. Everyone learns in different ways and learns better with different people. So having these experiences every 2 years then across your career, I think is useful. Can coaches stay with a team longer? Sure, they can. What are the situations where I see that happen? Maybe when they're a little bit younger, that you can stay with the team a little longer because there's less, less contact points, or maybe with a high school age group where you only have a 2/3 of the year team, half your team, you can stay for a third year as a coach where your own voice doesn't, start to lose its impact with the players. Or if there's a lot of turnover in a team, right? A team keeps regressing and there's turnover and you only have, 4 or 5 out of your 18 players are the players from year 1 and year 3. Maybe, that's another situation where that can continue on. And of course, there's also, I think some very unique, these aren't the norm, but I think there's some really unique situations where, the coach is extraordinary and it just kind of makes sense to finish out a third year, with a team that's graduating out, let's say, coach has been there at U16 and U17 and now in their U18 year, they finish it off and there's a good rapport, good connection, and it just kind of makes sense. So you always want to do what's logical, but I think in general, 2-year cycles are correct because it's, and I think as a club across the board, we try to stay with that. And I think it's correct mainly because of that, because I think it's important for the kids to get a different voice.
So when growing up, when I was playing soccer, we had the same coach, I think, forever. I think I had 2 coaches in club soccer that I had for forever. And we found success, but I think development has changed dramatically in over the curriculum, right? This is a very, very large club. You have a lot of moving pieces.
Sure.
How does the club, coordinate that? And coordinate that, that in itself has got to be, a very difficult thing, but you guys seem to do it well.
Well, thanks for that. All right. So I think the short answer is that there is an incredible amount of work that the players and the parents don't ever see in terms of there is literally hundreds of hours that go into the conversations between all the directors, coaching staff, all of the leadership in terms of coaching assignments, in terms of players moving back and forth between teams. Some of the opportunities that I alluded to earlier in terms of players being able to play up into higher level teams, play up an age group, play across genders and training and games. The amount of coordination and the amount of things that have to happen to create that, even just creating the practice grids for this club are a logistical, intense game of logistics to get all the teams the spaces they need, the frequency of training, so on and so forth. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scene that, no one ever sees. And so, I think we do a good job because I think we have a lot of really, really dedicated people that try to coordinate a million different pieces in terms of, what's happening within your soccer cycle and then also what's happening from one soccer cycle to the next in terms of the coaching transitions.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned opportunity a lot in the first episode and even here today, an opportunity. And you think about the amount of opportunity just within the club and just different levels, the trainings and whatnot. Managing opportunity is probably another thing that can be difficult because opportunity, expectations, they all kind of go hand in hand. Yeah. There are players that come in that I'd imagine are maybe towards the bottom of the fundamental and the foundation of soccer, and ones that come up towards the top.
Yeah.
Managing those opportunities within each team, with each player, parent, can be hard to do. And then when you're rotating coaches. And that could, managing that as well, right? Rotating coaches, opportunities. How do clubs like the Nationals, how do you guys how are you able to manage the opportunity aspect of this? Because again, you mentioned like scheduling and logistics and all that, but if a player needs there's a coach needs a player over here, what 3 teams are down players, how do you manage that?
Yeah. Okay. So again, these are a lot of the things that happen behind the scenes that a lot of people don't get to see. So, all right, managing the expectations, I think, is difficult because not everyone is going to get access to every opportunity, and that needs to be an upfront conversation. These opportunities do exist, but they are not for everyone every single time, right? Because you can't have 8 players from, this team always showing up to this other team's games and then, having an overload of players and destroying that team's experience because no one gets enough playing time, right? So you are always trying to balance these opportunities. And like I said, when you have very knowledgeable coaches who have, it's not their first rodeo necessarily, then they can help manage the expectations for the families, right? Like, yeah, there are going to be different moments where you get access to more opportunities, or you can come into, hey, I've got the, as a coach, I've got the first team and the second team, or I've got the under 11 team and the under 12 team. And yeah, you know what, you can come up and train here. And as long as your kid can hold the level, but, I'll try to figure out ways to get you some extra opportunities here and there, whether you're player 1 or player, 15 in the team, whatever it is, right? So the experience of our coaching staff helps to coordinate a lot of these opportunities. But I do think in terms of managing the expectation that is clear. The club has all these opportunities, but if you expect to get given every opportunity every single time, then as a parent, you're probably setting yourself up for some unfulfilled expectations, some kind of stopped intentions, and some level of frustration and anger. So I think that is an important discussion to have up front. Managing the opportunities for all the players, I think the staff does an incredible job of trying to provide that and really thoughtfully allow for the right development opportunity when the players are ready for it.
I think that's something that, from personally knowing a lot of coaches in various clubs, I think there's always those conversations that coaches are having of, I have a couple players here that, I think would benefit from some extra training here. And I know I'm short here. And those conversations I'm sure are going on all the time as they're identifying, and those are changing all the time. And it's not always maybe just top level players. It's sometimes just opportunities where players need opportunities to play. And I think that's one of the biggest things. Sometimes you can go to training and all this, but just kids need to play.
Yeah,
and
it's
that
fun,
kind,
right?
And that kind of leads me into our next question is, for these parents that are looking at the club, is what should the parents do? And obviously this is a little bit broad, but what can parents do to help their children when it comes to club soccer? What do you think the role of the parent can be and should be? And I know it's going to differ, and there's going to be parents that are more, I'm sure, more hardcore and dedicated than others, but what do you guys as a club want from the parents in your club?
Support your kid. I think that would be my number one thing. Just support your kid. I mean, that's what you do anyway. So it should be a piece of cake. Keep your own. Okay, so this would probably be. All right, let me think of it this way. You have to keep your own self out of your child's life and development, at the same time trying to help them by supporting them, but not taking over. Okay, so what does that mean? When they're young, just get them to training. Make sure they're provided with everything: water, socks, shoes, or uniforms. Make sure they feel like that they fit in. Don't be the one kid that shows up without like all of your gear necessarily, right? And then you feel like you stick out like a sore thumb on day one at school, right? So think just some really basic things. Just make sure that they're there. Get them there on time, and then sit back and allow them to be them, right? Development is not a straight line. It is all over the place, right? But hopefully, well, maybe not lately, but hopefully, like the stock market, it's always going up. It might be bumpy. There might be some downs, and then there's ups. Like, come on, we're all human. We all have experienced it ourselves in our own lives, where the little ups and downs and the bumps. The bumps are important. The bumps are important because that is probably when the most growth happens, right? Adversity presents an opportunity to be used as a stepping stone to climb higher. It can also be a stumbling block. And how long you allow it to be the stumbling block, or if it is the stumbling block that you never recover from, you really have to ask yourself why, because most of the time it's an internal processing of that, right? And you as parents have to help your child internally process the adversity, the disappointment of not making a team, the disappointment of playing badly in a game, these disappointments, these bumps, not playing as much in the big game, injury, huge disappointment can really throw you off. How you recover, from that. John just spoke about some of these things. These are all internal and mental, and if you can help your kid through it and not add to it with your own anxieties about where your child's career is going, right? That tends to be a bit more ego-driven and outcome-driven. So when you're, for me, okay, in my experiences with this, as a parent, if your own ego and your end goal becomes the predominant thing that you're after, again, you will set yourself up for these expectations that lead to disappointment and anger and frustration. If your entire outlook is about the process and a growth mindset and the long-term development of this young girl or young boy into a young woman, a young man, and into an adult, this long process of thousands of practices, thousands of games over an under 8 to under 18 career that eventually lead to wherever it leads for that human. They might be good enough to play in college, but they don't want to, right? Like, hey, I'm on a full ride to Oakland, but I have, I also just got into Harvard, and I'm just going to choose Harvard, and I'm not going to do soccer anymore, and I'm going to go do that. I'm just going to, that's what I'm going to do. Whatever the situation is, right? That's an extreme, kind of example. There's not probably, not everyone gets into Harvard, right? So, but you have to allow your child to develop how they are going to develop. Now, you can have messaging, you can shape it a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's their journey, right? It's your child's journey, not your journey. Support them, bring them everything. Don't become overbearing in the at the field for sure, in training or games, because they're gonna feel your energy from the sideline. And in the car ride home, ask them how they think it went, and leave it, and help them if they're walking through. You can help them walk through any kind of internal adversity, but from a match or training or whatever. And of course, watch out for anything that's becoming like really a down cycle where they don't want to go to practice. Then, red flags, you look out for red flags and you have conversations with your coaches about those things, right?
Sure.
But outside of that, allow their journey to be their journey.
Love it.
I know, right? It was good. It was good. I liked it. It was a good answer. I mean, good job, Steve.
All right, guys. Looks like we're ready for our next break. So we'll be back here on Nationals Monthly. We'll see you in just a second on the other side of this break. Take care.
In addition to our manual skills, we also have state-of-the-art equipment here at OMPT Specialists. For example, we have hydrotherapy, which is a treadmill underwater that allows the patients to unload their joints and walk pain-free.
Hey guys, welcome back to Nationals Monthly. This is Gronthik Chatterjee here on MSN. We're going to continue on with this conversation with Steve and John, and I think John, you had a question you wanted to follow up with from the last one.
Yeah, I did. I was just thinking about this and talking about expectations and parents and their role and all of that. I remember I still to this day, I'm the only one in my family that still actually does anything with soccer. My siblings all played and participated, played club ball. The weekends, going to tournaments, the practices, trying to figure all those things out. For my parents, I would imagine was a challenge back then.
Yeah, mine too.
I think even now, probably more so of a challenge because of, all the things that can be going on at any one moment in time.
Yeah.
There's a financial commitment. There's a time commitment. How does, what is your message to the parent out there in regards to that, in the time, the financial, of being a part of the Nationals in 2023?
Okay, that's another great question. It can be a lot, and I think that it can at times be overwhelming, but I think it always is. Again, if my, in the last response to Steve, I spoke with you about the fact that it's a process. Okay, so this is always I think what we should all be after in our life is a growth mindset, and the fact that, you know, what's the end goal? There isn't necessarily an end goal. You can have 2, 3, or 5 year goals. I think these are useful for people in their lives, but it is the continuous growth mindset of learning and development and the process that what we should always, I think, really adhere to. Okay. So how does that connect to your question? For me, when you are initially beginning at a young age in junior nationals and or the very first young club age groups at under 7, under 8, under 9, the financial commitment, the travel commitment, the amount of training and time that you're putting in, because this is what it always comes down to, is time and money, right? These are the two big factors logistically for any parent trying to help develop their kids with extracurricular activities like this, right? So it's time and money. The money side of it is always there, and in general, what does it go to? You know, it goes to pay for all your facilities, it goes to pay for your coaches, and it goes to pay for your leagues and your fees, and, you know, balls and uniforms and things like that, right? So it's all pretty logistically fairly set package. But the time aspect of it, you know, when you start young, I think this is actually, you know, that's our most valuable commodity to all of us. It's always time. Okay, so what are the time commitments? When you start young, maybe it's a practice a week, you know, a game, some sort of game event on a weekend. Some, you know, eventually becomes 2 practices a week, game on the weekend. Now, like I said, this club provides so many opportunities. You can probably do more when you're 7, 8, 9, 10 years of age, but that's a set thing. It's not overwhelming, right? As you grow into it, and if your child's proclivity, talent, desire levels continue to go up, then it starts to progress, but it progresses again in this process, right? So if you're a part of this process, it's very, very rare that you find, you know, this kid that's just coming to you for like a boys academy or girls academy level at 16 that's never ever been in club soccer and has never put any time into it. How would you have ever got, you know, maybe there are these one-off talents that are out there, the diamonds in the rough that have just been playing in the streets and happen to be so athletically talented and technically talented, and then all of a sudden they've figured out club soccer because they've been living in a vacuum. But most people, when they're coming into the levels that really start to be a 4 to 5 day a week commitment, they've already experienced it. They've already developed it. They're ready for the next stage in some capacity, right? So this is always a part of the process of getting kind of blooded in, you know, to a certain degree, from younger to older, and also from level to level as you continue to rise up the levels of the game. So parents tend to be fairly well prepared for it wherever we can help. And when I say we, it's a collective we. It's not just the club. In general, you know, what I found is that the teams really band together. So, you know, they, because I think especially as you get older and as the travel becomes a bit more intense and so on and so forth, and showcase events for the high school age girls and boys and things like that, you know, parents really help out. Kids pool up, and like 2 or 3 kids will go with a one parent and stay in a hotel room together to save on costs and save on, you know, meal money, so on and so forth. Not always does every parent travel with their child to every single event. Parents end up with multiple siblings splitting up and going here and there, or offloading their kids with another family for a weekend, and then they take that kid's family on another weekend, right? So they're sharing and they're helping each other all the time. This goes, you know, this happens on almost every one of our teams that I can think of at a high level down here, where the kids are coming from a variety of different places from around Southeast Michigan to our top-end girls and boys academies, where people carpool for training. Right, so they're saving gas money, and they're collectively trying to help each other. You know, like 4 or 5 families from Grand Blanc, Saginaw end up meeting at one spot, and then they drive, you know, the rest of the way down to Oakland down here for training at Evolution or Oakland University or whatever it happens to be. So I think the families really do a good job of helping one another in that capacity, from a time perspective and probably a little bit on a cost perspective. And then also, you know, each one of the teams in the club do a variety of fundraisers, different things like that to help balance the cost points. And, you know, and as a club, we never want anyone to not play soccer because of the dollars and cents of it. So the club also has ways of trying to help people. But in general, the teams themselves come together and do it. And for the parent that's sitting on the outside of club soccer, or thinks that playing at a top level, their kid has the ability to do it, but, you know, playing at the top level, the financial commitment, the time commitment is just, they sometimes create a image that it is unattainable for them, and then they never even go and check it out. And so for those families, or if you know families like that and you happen to be listening to this, just understand there's a variety of ways of, there's many ways to skin the cat, right? So like you should look into it first before you create an overwhelming story that isn't actually the way it plays out. And that's something, I think that for all of us in our lives is something we do. We can create a story of why it won't work, can't work, shouldn't work, never has worked. And then you just figure out a way to make it work. So look into making it work, and chances are it probably will work out.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, because so many of these misconceptions get put out there amongst whether it's the cost of clubs or how clubs are run and those types of things. So I think that's good to put that out there, because I think once you do dive into these clubs and the things that they can offer, the help they can offer, there really is opportunities out there for everyone, and to know that, that your club, and through various ways, can make sure that these families that want to be committed to the club, that there is a will and a way, and that, you guys can make those ends meet. When you guys are looking for players in a club in general, is there a profile? Obviously, soccer ability and the desire to be there. You don't want a kid who doesn't want to be there. But what are some of those characteristics that you guys look for in players from all ages, I guess, outside of just the soccer skills? What are you looking for to really bring in? I'm sure it goes back to those 5 stars and that family and community, but really, what are you guys looking for outside, to bring into the club?
Okay, again, these are fairly large, open-ended kind of questions. So here's what I'll say. I want soccer to be accessible for everyone. So from the money and time question, John, that we were just talking about, to access to opportunities that we've already discussed. I want soccer to be available for everyone wherever our club goes, so that we can help really grow the game, grow a love for the game, grow the culture of soccer in our area of the world here in Southeast Michigan, and wherever we carry our flag. Okay, frankly, whether we're in tournaments elsewhere, we're planting a flag, and whoever we're competing against is also planting the same flag, right? So we might be competing on a field for a moment, but we are all in the soccer scene, and we're all helping to develop and grow the soccer scene, right? So I want that accessibility. So in that sense, we're not looking for anyone except for the desire to want to play. Okay, so that's the only floor. Is that you have a desire to play and you want to do this, and somehow you are connected in where you show up at our door, or you inquire, in some way you inquire about our club, right? As you go up in level and as you go up in age, then there are certain things that I think you're starting to look for. And I think, again, because the coaches are in niches and they know the zone that they're in, they have specific things that they might be looking for. Sometimes it might be just a specific need for a team. I think the most glaring and obvious one, you would know very, very clearly, Steve, would be for the goalkeeper, right?
Oh, he plays goalie. We'll take him.
That's right? So, that's such a, kind of position-specific thing, especially as you age, right? You have to have a very, very unique skill set to do that. Not everyone can just jump in there and do that. That's on the field, whereas a lot of the field players can be interchangeable in a couple different positions, As you get to the very, very highest levels of our boys and girls academy, then you actually, there's a fully developed set of position profiles of what you're looking for attribute wise in the players. But, it is still youth soccer. This is not a full professional, this isn't FC Barcelona. This is not, Bayern Munich. This is not a pro thing where the level of positional profile and who you go after as a player, and, you've got a depth chart of 3 or 4 guys you'd like in at right back, and you can go get it. It is that way to some degree, but not all the way, because at the end of the day, they're kids. They're kids, and they can all develop in a variety of different ways. Are there some position profiles that fit in what is an example of a positional profile? So, for example, you're probably not going to look for the 5'5" kid to be the center back at U17 in a men's game. Now, can there be? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can just see that even at Manchester United with Lisandro Martinez coming in. This guy's, not exactly the positional profile for a center back, and my God, does he make it work, right? And there have been a couple of guys like that over time. Cannavaro, one of the very, very best players in the world for the Italian national team back in his day. Martinez is trying to show that now. And so can you overcome positional profiles? Of course you can. And I think that as youth players and as coaches of youth players, you can have a profile, but then you also just look at what a kid can get done on the pitch, right? But yes, I think there are certain things that really do stand out. I think to your point, athletic ability. But athletic ability doesn't always mean just like big, strong, fast, right? It's agility, it's balance, it's coordination, it's quickness across 10 yards. These things tend to be a lot more soccer specific than the, kind of typical American football traits that kind of get over amplified in the American sports psyche and culture because of the NFL Combine, more than anything. So, there's different things that we are looking for. And I think as you go up in level, it gets way more nuanced. And the coaches that are specific to that area know exactly what they might be looking for in particular things, particular players, particular attributes, particular positions. But in general, across the club, the desire to be here and the desire to learn the game and play the game is what we want. We want it to be inclusive. And then at a certain level, it can become a bit more exclusive where you're looking for particular technical and athletic qualities by position in need. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So I also wanted to just real quickly, I wanted to come back to kind of one other thought about the overall picture of of that kind of growth mindset. And the dollars and the cents, the coaches, what makes nationals special, so on and so forth, right? And with this whole idea, right, of the growth mindset and the opportunity cost, let me look at it that way. The opportunity cost of playing soccer. As you look at the different enrichment activities that you can provide for your kids outside of school, okay? And their social development, their social interaction, healthy adults with, in our day and age currently, right, and obviously to the things that John Hill is trying to provide, your mental stability, your physical activity. I think that an overactive mind and an underactive body tend to lead to problems over time. Getting out there and being in a physical space and getting out there and interacting. I just came back from a symposium where there's a really, 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 really profound speech, I'll say, right, from a leading doctor at the University of Wisconsin. I got exposed to and his studies on mental and physical health on children in sports, children in soccer, and different teams at the University of Wisconsin. And one of the biggest things was the self-expressed psychological dips, suicidal thoughts, downward thoughts during and right after COVID, when the athletes and kids across the board, so different studies that he shared, some with the athletes at University of Wisconsin on a variety of teams, others on a larger scale from different studies that were happening. Their dip and the absolute importance of sport in your child's development in life, it was so profound in the graphs and in the studies and in what that dip was doing. So it really, really kind of brought it home to me. Almost everything we talked about in the last show and what this club is about is the development and the long-term growth mindset of your kid and ways that you can do that on a consistent basis over time. So if the cost is too much, if the time feels overwhelming, what else will you do with your kid during that time? Because if they're just sat at home or if they're alone or if they're whatever, it's going to lead to other things, right? And what will that cost be, right? What if your kid isn't at soccer 10, 15, 20 hours a week when they're 13 to 18, what might they be doing in that space and time? That is another thing that I think that we should always be aware of and look at is positive enrichment activities have a cost. What is the cost the other direction if said opportunities aren't there? And whether you're in nationals, you're in another soccer club, you're in basketball, you're in volleyball, just for the overall health of all of our young men and women as they're developing, something for all parents to really consider is that time. Because again, like we said, time's your most valuable commodity. So what is your child doing with their time if they're not at soccer? If they're, maybe they're just studying and that's what they like to do, and they've got a whole bunch of other activities socially and or independently with their homework, and that's fine. Everyone has their own way, but just something to consider for everyone that's in the audience, right?
Oh, that was great. That was a great way to end this.
Well, Fair enough. So, well, guys, again, this has been Gronthik Chatterjee with Nationals Monthly. Been joined today by John Turner and Steve Besk. Can't thank you guys enough for coming on board here with us. Obviously, MSN Network is where we're at, so come and tune in again next month here at MSN for Nationals Monthly. Until then, take care. Hope you guys all have a safe month. Take care.